Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory be to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakak Wadash. And I want to say double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that rule well, and blessings to the hopeful elect out there listening and learning and teaching this word in sincerity and truth and the sincere hopes that we may feed the lambs of Yahweh Shai, especially in these last days. And, this is going to be a video going into, which I wanted to do this lesson yesterday. The Spirit had me focus on other lessons. But nonetheless, I'm here today as I was lying down, gathering my strength, as I had a, pretty heavy day, preparing myself for the next day. I was just thinking about, a couple clips that I had recorded as I was, watching the news, or alternative news, if you will. That's the Spirit redacted. What is it on? Panic. So, and the thing is, I'm about to do a video on this. This clip is actually from Redacted, so fair use, fair use. I'm not making any money from this, but in this clip, they're gonna speak about how sleeper cells. In fact, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna type in what is a sleeper cell. And type in a sleeper cell is a covert group of operatives, often spies or Ts, who infiltrate a target country and remain inactive for a long period of time. So they're basically laying dormant, like a cancer would lay dormant in the body until the time it's activated and it shows itself. It's pretty shit analogy really, but nonetheless, I just used it just so that you can get an idea of what a sleeper cell actually is. They basically lie in wait, for the time that's right in order for them to, pretty much stage black swan events and pretty much, shake up the masses, which the word mass means death. It says who infiltrate a target country and remain inactive for a long period of time, according to intelligence experts. The goal is to blend in completely. And what you're gonna find out is a lot of these insurance companies, like Lloyd's for London, apparently they're refusing to insure the oil tankers going through the Straits of Hormuz. And a lot of these insurance companies, obviously in light of what's going on over there in the so-called Middle East, with the turmoils with Iran, the Carmenians, being wild as a bull, like the scripture says in 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter. And you also got the dragons of Arabia. Okay, that landmass is heating up over there. You're dealing with the valley of Jehoshaphat, which is Yahweh Shaphat, spoken of in, Joel, the 3rd chapter. And that landmass there is getting hot. And the apostles told us to keep our eyes on the so-called Middle East. Now, in response to all of this, the Ayatollah got smoked, and you're getting certain heads of organizations over there getting smoked, getting taken out, and there's casualties on both sides. But what you don't seem to realize is that you got these the Sunnis and the Shiites, they basically believe in jihad, which is like, you take out one of theirs, then they go to like a holy war or something like that. And you got a lot of these sleeper cells that are from certain backgrounds, from regions over there in the so-called Middle East, and it's all set up that way for a reason. Now, the reason why I mentioned Lloyd's of London, you got insurance companies that are set up, apparently, according to this woman, her name is Colonel Towner Watkins. Okay, retired USAF colonel exposing Operation Gladio. And she pretty much said that, you got the MI5 and the MI6 and the CIA that's involved in these insurance companies that are just basically intelligence gathering, and they're set up as economic hitmen, or they go into certain, regions to destabilize them, cause uproars, all right, and then they have these people displaced, and where the people get displaced, they end up in your cities, they end up in America, they end up in London or whatever. And then you got sleeper cells among them. You got agents that are among them. All right. And they're lying in wait right now. And they're just ready, when need is, to do their thing. All right. So without further ado, before I even play you this clip, I'm going to go ahead and read Ephesians 5 and 15. I ain't going to make this a long video. I just want to read this real quick because this clip was playing on my mind. I said I got to do a lesson on this one. So check this out, right? It says, see then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is. So this is all the will of the Lord ultimately, okay? And we have to be circumspect with how we move in these times. And, you just get ready for them to demonize us and say that we're the problem, and we're the worst thing ever. In light of what's going on, these guys are the ones that are responsible, pushing extremist content. They're going to come for us, all right? But that's all a part of biblical prophecy anyway. All right, the scriptures speak about presenting our bodies a living sacrifice. Okay, so let me go ahead and play you. So we read about what a sleeper cell is. Okay, a covert group of ops, often spies or T's, who infiltrate a target country and remain inactive for a long period of time. A long period of time. All right, they might even talk how you talk. They might even eat the same kind of food you eat, but they might be from a completely different place. Born in a completely different place, but they grew up, and trained in the arts of how to blend in, like to be a perfect American citizen or a UK citizen, you name it, okay? And it's nothing for them to be able to spin that on us and say that we're the ones that are sleeper cells and so on and so forth. So we have to be very circumspect in these last days. Let me go ahead and play you this. But you've actually got real sleeper cells that are out there that are going to stage these attacks. All right, or actually, carry out these attacks. And you might have genuine ones as well. All right, at the same time, genuine, methods of execution, if you will, by, bloodthirsty, revenge-driven Arabians or Carmanians, which are Persians, But at the same time, I mean, you're going to have something called the Pax Islamica, which is basically peace among the Islamists. They're being united with what's going on over there in the so-called Middle East. It's only going to serve to unite them. And they're going to come together. You got, the Carmanians, they, Persia or Elam. Okay, why do you think they're allowing these tankers, to get to India? Okay, because India and Elam, they're the same people, basically. Okay, and among a lot of those East Indian countries, you got, you got, certain different religions like Hinduism and that, but a lot of them are actually, pretty much Muslim. Okay, so it's this Pax Islamica is going to be real. Okay, and they already call America the Great Satan. You can see how divided America is right now. Scriptures speak about Satan's kingdom divided shall not be able to stand. So their kingdom is divided. It's coming to an end. All right. So listen up and listen good. Listen to this.
Protest as the mechanism. They throw in a bomb. Supposedly,
let me play this.
They did it in Bangladesh. Just with those people as well to create your boots on the ground, the jack boots, and then they use the people that come out to quote unquote protest as the mechanism. They throw in a bomb, supposedly from some other radical element in the country. You see it here with Antifa.
Yeah, that, and they throw in a B. There's nothing for them to throw in a B at any time, at any stage in these last days. All right, in order for them to flip the chaotic situation, to further their agenda, which is the new world order. All right, to start conflict with one people against another, which ultimately the scriptures tell you that one people shall stand up to fight against another and swords in their hands. That's prophecy speaking at its finest, or happening at its finest. All right, but nonetheless, the Lord is using Esau, to bring that into fruition. Let's keep going.
They keep people in this heightened sense of being terrorized, the chaos.
You hear that? They keep people in this heightened sense of fear and terror. Listen to this.
Protest as the mechanism. They throw in a bomb, supposedly from some other radical element in the country. You see it here with Antifa. They keep people in this heightened sense of being terrorized, the chaos, in order to control us.
Yes, to the point where, in order to control, and what's that control? That control is going to come by way of the chip. Like the scripture says in Revelation 13 and 16, he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. And that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark. So, they're going to be able to control you through means of buying and selling, and they're going to come down hot and heavy with it. Remember, the scripture says the devil has come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he have but a short time. So don't ever get it twisted. This man's moving with his New World Order agenda. But when he goes to do that, like the scripture says, the Most High is going to cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he is eating, man. Okay? That's in Job 20 and 23. Let's keep going here.
It is about total control. Now, one of the pieces, of course, you're hearing now is also...
That's something, every time I hear total control, I think about Elder Apostle Kubar quoting the Aaron Russo interview with Alex Jones. Total control. When he was mentioning the conversation that he had, to Alex Jones, or with Nick Rockefeller. That was Aaron Russo talking with Nick Rockefeller, and he was talking to Alex Jones about the conversation. And then, pretty much, talking about the total control, meaning the RFID chip, but in order for them to do that, they need chaos. There's a Latin phrase, it's called ordo ab chaos. Let me go ahead and get 2 Corinthians 2 and 11. It says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. And Iran, they call America the great Satan for a reason. Okay. And this man, Satan's kingdom is divided. He's done. All right. That even what's going on over there with the Straits of Hormuz, America has made their bed. They got to sleep in it. Their allies don't even want to bat them. Okay, now all of a sudden, whose look was more stout than his fellows, you got Trump saying, look, we don't need NATO. We never needed them. And, snubbing out the UK PM, talking about he's no Winston Churchill, talking about how snugging out the UK military, the British military, talking about they were never on the front lines. I mean, there's been a lot of snubbing out the allies that America's been doing in these last days. Okay, which is only going to pretty much make the situation worse for them in the long run, because the scripture says the 10 horns, they shall hate the horn, shall burn up with fire. So you got NATO and the EU, which is the beast in Revelation 17, but then you got the woman or the whore that rides the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. And soon that beast is going to butt this bitch off and going to burn her with fire. All right, so let's keep going here.
Also about sleeper cells. Now, one of the pieces, of course, you're
now listen up. This is the point I wanted to get to.
Hearing now is also about sleeper cells, right? So I can't help when I hear Iranian sleeper cells in the United States, they're being active.
Ooh, you hear that? Iranian sleeper cells in the US. And when I hear this stuff, I think about that clip that surfaced, which I should really take a screenshot recording of that clip as well, that surfaced a couple years back. And you had that immigrant that approached the ambushed journalist at the border, and he was saying, we had a Middle Eastern type accent, and he was saying, soon you're going to know who I am. You don't know who I am, but soon you're going to know who I am. And that sent ripples, and shock and horror and awe. It was all over mainstream media and alternative media platforms. And I remember that. And he said, soon you're going to know who I am. You don't know who I am, but soon you're going to know who I am. So they're letting you know this is, they're letting you know what they're planning to do. That's why they put it's called predictive programming. They put these T attacks in these movies like London Has Fallen or Children of Men, coffee shops. Just 1 minute, everything's all calm. You're ordering your coffee. You got the person behind the counter. Oh, what would you like? Let me have a matcha or whatever, or what they drink these days, matcha. Can I get a latte or a flat white or whatever, then all of a sudden, boom, you know? And that's, that's as quickly as it can go down, but listen to what Clayton Morris is saying here. This is from Redacted, okay? Listen.
Invaded, United States, they're being... So I can't help when I hear like Iranian sleeper cells in the United States, they're being activated. You need that fear at home. So I can't help when I hear these types of stories, my mind immediately goes to false flags, strategy of tension, keeping us in this like permanent state of...
My mind immediately goes to false flags. All right. And what does she say? She goes, yes. She goes, yes. Okay. So these things are getting ready to happen. And for all you people out there that are in that peace and safety spirit, you have no idea what's about to happen. Okay? You have no idea. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. You see, so that peace and safety spirit is through, man, because you ain't going to be able to be prepared, mentally for what's coming, spiritually for what's coming. You're seeking peace and safety, in a completely different direction. You're going way off. You're seeking peace and safety. Just ship everyone, just to bring stability back, normality, and buying and selling. People are going to buckle under the pressure. When the hour of temptation hits, you're going to have a lot of people buckling under the pressure. And just to get a sense of normality back, quote unquote, they will line up, okay? Just like, the Apostle John, as he was sent to the Isle of Patmos and he received the vision of people getting chipped in these last days, not being able to buy and sell unless you had the chip, This is exactly what's going to happen. And those are the people that are in that peace and safety spirit. The scripture said that they will be eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage. So for the most part, there's going to be chaos everywhere, but there's going to be certain spots that are going to be doing, going to be, eating and drinking. They're going to be chipped up. They're going to have chipping parties and all kinds of stuff. You can see it happening. And these people, they go crazy in concerts for their favorite celebrities. So what do you think they're going to do for that chip? When this is a celebrity they go crazy for. So what do you think, how crazy do you think they're going to go, right, for the ability to be able to fill their bellies? It's just a point. It's something to think about. All right, listen to this. Of chaos, and maybe there's some truth to it, maybe there's not. What do you make of this, like, Iranian sleeper cells in the United States part of the story? So I'm concerned about sleeper cells in general. Not because those are basically stay-behind units. So the CIA has been notorious for taking, and I'll give you an example. When you go into Vietnam and you're in Laos and you're in Cambodia, in order to effect all of that, you have people working for the CIA. Well, when the CIA has to pull back out of Vietnam, they bring with them the people that work for them. You just had the guy from Washington State go shoot 2 National Guard people in Washington, D.C., and we find out that he worked for the CIA in Afghanistan. You see that? And what does the scripture say? Their tongue shall fall upon themselves. See this woman here, she's pretty much blowing it all open. And that's why the scripture says that, I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places. The secret counsel of the wicked is no longer a secret. Okay, it's out in the open. It's whether your mind is open to be able to receive it, or you're gonna be like Smeagol from Lord of the Rings. No, I'm not listening. You just keeping your head's buried under a pillow, all because you wanna twerk in a club, in a dark nightclub with strobe lights. You wanna live this life. But this is coming to an end. That peace and safety spirit, thinking that you're secure, is all coming to an end. Your world is about to be rocked. Listen to Colonel Towner Watkins. She just said it. And she doesn't, she sounds quite sincere with what she's saying, how she's coming with that energy. And this happens all the time. All of the people in Cuba that worked with the CIA were brought into Miami.
And what happened to that entire Cuban exile? Well, we created a military training base and deployed them down to Guatemala to overthrow the government down there.
So these are all CIA operatives, man. You know, this is insane. But when you have the eyesight to be able to see and to be able to decode what's going on, it's not so far-fetched for the prophets to believe that this man is the devil, that this man is capable of doing these things, that he's capable of creating sleeper cells to destabilize and introduce chaotic situations to establish order in his way. All right? It's all about control. It always has been about control. And that's why I read 2 Corinthians 2:11. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Okay, let's see if there's any more here.
In Nicaragua, they were part of the Iran-Contra. They've destabilized the entire Latin American community out of this pool of Colombian expats. This is a known tactic of the CIA. And so we have all kinds of sleeper cells in the United States in these refugee, that's the word they use. But most of the refugees, and the CIA even has a cutout through the State Department of people they can vouch for that doesn't even go through the normal vetting process.
They don't go through the normal vetting process, man. And those be the same people. Some of them, they were getting put up in these hotels and, well, I don't know for a fact if it was them that were getting put up in the hotels, but we know that there are people that are slipping through the net and not getting vetted. All right, which basically allowed them to push out ICE. Again, they needed a draconian measure, right, to respond to such a chaotic situation with immigration and the refugees. But they're the ones that create the chaos. Remember, the Hegelian dialectic, pressure from above and pressure from beneath. They control both sides. And they constantly squeeze the people in the middle, right? And the people beg for a solution, all right? So these devils are at work, but ultimately, they're being exposed. Okay, they're being exposed. Let me go ahead and get Psalm 64. 64. This is Psalm 64:8. It says, "So shall they make their own tongue to fall upon themselves, and all that see them shall flee away." So their own tongue is now falling upon themselves. They're being revealed, and the shameful spewing is upon their glory. All right, the Epstein files are all out. All right, they're being found out that they're the biggest creeps on planet Earth. They like to grape little children. They like to terrorize little children. They like to hunt down, Israelite children. It's all in the files. It's all in the emails. Okay, they like to eat children. They like to terrorize them and harvest their blood when they're in the fight and flight mode. And I mean, all kinds of stuff is coming out in these emails, man. And that's that shameful spewing upon Esau's glory. All right. So if you thought that we were chatting shit, and not only that, remember, you got these Masons, man. Remember Albert Pike, letter to Manzini, the plan for 3 world wars, and they want to pit the Zionists against the Islamic world, and they want people to fight to complete exhaustion, spiritual exhaustion, to the point where people are just sick. So there's gonna be a Pax Islamica, unification, right, of these Islamic peoples and that and whatever, and they're gonna be doing some stuff. Okay, it's gonna happen. Okay, and Ishmael is all up in the US. We don't know what the fuck they're doing up in the US, man. And look how they've already been demonizing them in these movies, like Team America, for example. That little puppet show, that was a comedy, but it was demonizing, the Arabs and that, that they're just basically the T's. But they were all up in, they were all up causing all kinds of havoc and that. What other show am I thinking of? They got all kinds of shows, man, depicting these T's. I mean, they had 9/11. That was enough. That wasn't even a show. That was real life. Okay. The war in Iraq and all this stuff. You had all this stuff. I mean, these things are all, reasons for them to turn up the heat and get more draconian with their measures. All right, if they present the situation to the public that's so severe that they need to turn things up, and then the people will be hot for it. Yeah, let's go. That's why you got certain blockheads out there that voted for Trump that still, they're still for the draft and they're still going hard for Trump, even though Trump's caused all kind of havoc, man. It completely deluded. All right, but anyways,
of a refugee. There's a quota given to the CIA to bring these people in. Most people don't even know that. These people are trained assassins that were under the command of the CIA. Some of them remain on the payroll of the CIA for decades.
Wow. You hear that? Some of them remain on the payroll of the CIA for decades, Sonny. You got trained assassins out there, sleeper cells that are ready to do some stuff. All right, and it's all Hegelian dialectic, but the Lord, like the scripture says, if it were possible, they should deceive the very elect. The Lord, it's not possible to deceive us, man. Lord willing, I'm of the elect. Lord willing, we will never be deceived by what's really going on out here. So, anyway, with that, I pray this was an edifying lesson. Stay sharp. Shalom to the elect.